Good afternoon. Welcome to Politalks here at Regent Park Focus. My name is Erica, and today we have our guest, Chris Moise, School Board Trustee, Ward 14. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful.
Great. So we just wanted to start today. So just so our viewers know, where is Ward 14?
So Ward 14 encompasses two city council wards. So it's Ward 27, which is Kristen Long-Tam, Councilor Kristen Long-Tam, and Ward 20, which is the former City Councilor Pam McConnell's ward.
Okay.
So one school board ward is two city council wards. So I work very closely with those two city councilors.
Okay, so you work in conjunction with those two.
Well, partnerships, because there's some overlap in some things, and we are able to assist one another throughout our term.
Okay, so Chris, I just wanted to ask, so how long have you been in public service and what made you decide to get involved?
I've been a school board trustee for 2 years now, and this is I ran 3 times.
Oh,
I ran 2010, 2014, and then by-election in 2016. And I got involved initially because I played badminton in a few of our schools here in Toronto, and I was just amazed as to the disrepair of the schools, right? I mean, there were holes in the ceilings, there's drafty windows. It was just horrendous. And that's what piqued my interest in, education and how could kids, learn in this environment. I know when I went to school, our schools were always amazing.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what really ignited my interest in education and, in politics in general.
Okay.
But that being said, I was always involved in politics from my university years, and I wouldn't tell you how long ago that was, but it was a while back. And so I've been involved in various levels throughout. And also too, I worked at St. Mike's Hospital for 23 years as a counselor, and my role there was really working with people who are under house, suffer from addictions and mental health. And some of my clientele were actually young people who were kicked out of their homes for various reasons or running from abuse of one sort or another. And I had to engage them and the education system as well. So I come at it at different angles and different lens when I look at education. I feel it helps me now in my role as a school board trustee.
Okay, because you just come from all sort of angles. So you're involved in a lot of social policy and things like that.
Yes. So when I do speak on certain things, I feel like I speak with some authority because I have, the different skills, I would say.
Okay. And so what educational pathways did you take to become a school trustee?
Well, there's not really a path per se. I mean, really life skills is really all you need, I would say, and, just being a leader in your community. But for me, again, my background, again, is social sciences. So I look at the world in that lens, and trying to help people. It's always been innate in me to help people, be it either within my household or community. And that's what drives me still today, right? Really just public service, really.
And I guess when you said that it's in your nature to want to help people. I guess going outward, you always want to know how people relate to the bigger society around them as well. Would you say so?
Absolutely. And, again, for me as a Black person, right? I mean, I have my own lived experiences,
Definitely.
Within the school system. I know all the stats out there, how, Black kids underachieve within the system. I know some of the barriers that are in place that prevent them from achieving, right? And this is why some of the policies I've championed at the TDSB focuses around some of those issues. For example, last year, and I'm totally going off beat here, but that's okay.
That's all right.
Last year, I was the trustee brought the review for the school resource officer program as to, why are policing in our schools and how effective are they in our schools, and, how is this affecting, Black kids? Where are these officers located in our schools, right? The stats show they're in marginalized areas. The stats shows that, a lot of Black kids are being not treated properly by the SROs in the schools. There's a there's this saying about, it's a pipeline from, from the school to prison, right? Because even though they may be resource officers within our schools, they are taking down people's names. Well, there was a perception, or the public belief, that they were taking the names of these kids down and giving it to their, colleagues in the field. And when they're out in the streets, they're being stopped, and they're being carded, right? Yeah. We also have a policy that teaches beware, don't ask, don't tell. Even though you may be here illegally without papers, we believe every child, regardless of their status, should have an education. So we will bring those kids into our schools and we'll educate them. But with the SR programs in the schools, we find that there has been some reports of border services working with the police to get these kids and these families out of the country. So again, those are all very concerning to me as a school board trustee and someone who oversees the system. And I felt that we needed to address some of those issues. And so I brought a motion forth to review the program. We have public consultation. I also said in my motion that we should also make sure we go out and seek those voices we would normally hear from. Yeah. Because when we have public consultation, you always get the same group of people coming out, or types of people coming out, right? So we want to hear those voices that we don't normally hear from. And we went into Regent Park communities. We made sure people had safe spaces to come and tell the truth, because again, space is important. And the students and the teachers. And overwhelmingly, we heard from those marginalized communities that this was a problem for them. And as a result of that, we ended the program last year. So I feel, again, for me as a Black person, if I wasn't in that space, that may not have happened. Yeah. Right? If it would have happened, it would have happened. Well, it could have happened a long time ago, but it happened now under my watch, with the support of some of my colleagues, right? Yeah. So I think it's important to have different people of different backgrounds, not only on the school board, but throughout, political life, be it the city level, provincial, federal, right? So that's really important. And again, I'm totally off tangent, but I apologize.
It's all good. It's all good. So what is your role as a trustee? I think you may have touched on this. But so what is your role as a trustee? What is the day-to-day?
So the role of there's 22 trustees in the city of Toronto, which is half of the city council wards, as I just mentioned, because one school board ward is 2 city council wards. And we're really, in a sense, a mirror of the city. Like we are like a counselor, but for the school board, for example. And when we sit as trustees of 22 trustees, we set policies for the board, the entire school board. And I mentioned earlier around my motion for the SROs, right? So as a school board trustee, I could bring a motion forth. It goes through a committee of the board, and then to the entire board. And if the majority of the board votes on the motion, it becomes policy of the school board, the entire school board. So it's really important. That's just one aspect of my role. Again, I mentioned I sit on committees. I engage parents. I work with our local city councilors. I also have ward forums to bring parents from across the wards out, one location to talk about issues in the ward. And depending what I hear from community and others, I will bring those things to the school board and, hopefully effect change for the entire system. Okay. So it's all encompassing, really. Like this job could be as much or as little as you want it to be, but I take my role very seriously, and I put a lot of hours into it. Okay. Right.
Okay. So how is Ward 14 different from any other ward, do you think?
It's a very diverse ward. I mean, it goes as far north as Rosedale Moore Park, right, which is a very affluent area of the ward. And then we also have Regent Park, we have St. Jamestown, it includes the island. So again, it's very, very diverse. So that in itself makes it very different because different, depending where you are in the ward, different people are saying different things. And, certain things are impacted, different ways in certain areas of the ward, right? But again, for me, one of the things I've been working on at the school board is enhancing equity, right? And thankfully, the director and the majority of people on the school board are in alignment that we all recognize that every school should be an equitable school, no matter where you are. One of the things people who come into this ward and, across the system, they'll say, well, I want to move in this neighborhood because I heard the schools are better here.
Yeah.
Right? But all the staff in our system, they all go to the same teachers college, right? In the sense that the same programs are being taught throughout Ontario, be it York University or Western, U of T, right? The curriculum is very similar. So what makes one school better than the other, right? So what you're hearing then is that it's race, right? It's immigration. So people, I find, when they say that I don't like this school or this school is not as good as another, is because, well, there's a lot of ESL kids who come here, and my kid may not grow as quickly, right? Or socialize as well, or I don't really like what my kid will pick up from other kids, right? So there's some undertone of racism, I find, to be quite frank. And so that's something which we're working on at the school board, and this is why we're focusing on enhancing equity. So making sure that, every school is an equitable school and all kids have an opportunity to excel no matter where they are in the system, right? So.
You made a point that really stuck with me, that this word is different because there's one part that's affluent and another that's sort of maybe not. So do you think, you also said it was also a factor of race, do you think it would be a socioeconomic factor as well?
Socioeconomic factors, of course, all those things play a role, right? In our society, as much as we don't like to admit it, if you have resources, aka money,
of course,
you may live in a better neighborhood, right? And resources you have in certain neighborhoods are more plentiful than others, right? Some families, if their kids are falling behind, they could have provide support to the kids, right? Through mentoring or private schools or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I would say in Regent Park, where there's people are not as affluent, they may not have the extra resources to send their kids to piano and to guitar and everything else, unless there's some sort of community agency out there providing it, at a free cost, right? And also too, people in this community, there's a lot of single parent households too, or single income households. And you find that they are working 2-3 jobs, right? And they send their kids to school in the thinking or hoping that, the school will take care of their kids and give them the best and provide the best that they can while they are focusing on other aspects of the household, right? Putting food on the table, making sure the rent is paid, all those things, right? And, when some parents, blink, they realize that their kid's not doing so well, and then, it's like, what happened, right? So it's a balance. I know it's hard, but I think it's important that parents, stay engaged in their children's education and ask difficult questions. But that being said, I know that, the system is hard to navigate, right? We often say the TDSB is a hard ship to turn, right? And I know that, every school has gatekeepers. And if you don't speak the language, that's another issue, right? So that is a failing on our part as a system, that, we're not as supportive to parents. Make sure that we should have people in the school that perhaps speak the language of the parent, or providing that service to them, bringing them into the school, teaching them ESL, all those things. We can do all those things because too, if we're sending homework home to those kids, who are, immigrants, and they are not having problems doing their homework, or the parents can't speak English, the homework doesn't get done.
And
the
then
kids
how do
fall
they-
behind, right? So there's a number of issues, and we know what they are at the school board. We do, trust me. We collect data on everything. So it's what we do with that data. How do we help our most marginalized students and families in the system? And that's where the enhancing equity framework comes in, right?
Okay.
And it talks about anti-black racism. It talks about anti-Islamophobia, right? It talks about anti-indigenous, issues. So we have the data. We know where the issues lie, and we need to have the courage to act on those things. And I believe we are.
So can residents be involved in the work, and if so, how?
Absolutely. There are many things residents can do to get involved. But the first step, though, is coming to my ward forums. And I just want to plug in that, on April 26th at Lord Dufferin, I'm having an anti-Islamophobia forum, town hall. And I really want to invite from 6 to 8. And I want to invite everyone who's listening to come out. It's a free event. There'll be childcare and there'll be refreshments. So come on out. It'll be halal, don't worry. And we'll be bringing someone in from the equity department to talk about anti-Islamophobia. So please come out if you are able.
All right. And any final remarks before we wrap up?
Well, it's always nice coming into this space. It's my third time, and I always feel, welcome. And it was a pleasure meeting you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this has been Politalks. Thank you for watching. I'm your host, Erica, and again, thank you, Chris, for coming here and interviewing with us. It's been a pleasure. And remember, there is the anti-Islamophobia event, April 26th, 6 to 8 p.m. There will be refreshments, childcare, and as always, it's free, so feel free to come on out. This has been our show, and thank you guys. Have a great weekend. It's been Regent Park TV.